All right, let's talk about something we've all probably been through, trying to get over an ex. It can feel, well, impossible sometimes, right? But what if I told you there's a mental trick, a really counterintuitive one, that could actually help you break free for good? That's what we're going to dive into today. So let's start with the big question. Why is it so darn hard to move on? After a breakup, it feels like the memory of that person just sets up camp in your head and refuses to leave. We just get stuck thinking about what we had, what we lost, and what it would be like if they just came back. And look, this isn't just some passing thought. It feels more like you're being haunted, like a lingering ghost. The memory of an ex can totally crash the party of your present life, casting this shadow over moments that should just be for you. And the crazy part is where these thoughts decide to show up. I mean, you could be in the middle of a work meeting, trying to focus, and boom, there they are. Or you're with someone new, in a new relationship, and you find yourself comparing. They can pop up when you're just trying to relax and watch a movie, or even when you're standing in front of some beautiful place you've traveled miles to see. This quote just hits the nail on the head. We're sitting there, hurting, missing this person, but if they actually showed up on our doorstep, bags in hand, we'd probably tell them to turn right around and leave. It's this huge contradiction that keeps us so stuck. So, what do we do? How do we break this crazy cycle? Well, the idea we're going to explore is a little weird. It's totally counterintuitive because it involves leaning right into the one thought you've probably been trying to run away from. Yep, you heard that right. The solution is to stop fighting it. Instead, you're going to take the idea of getting them back very, very seriously. Like genuinely entertain the thought. I know, it sounds a little nuts, but just stick with me here. Now, let's be super clear. This is not about making a plan to actually get back together. Not at all. Think of it like a thought experiment. The whole point is to push past that fuzzy, romantic fantasy in your head and get down to some cold, hard reality. Okay, so here's how you do it. First, you just accept the possibility. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, you could get them back tomorrow. Okay, then, and this is the most important part, you ask yourself, what then? You got to push past that happy little reunion fantasy. And finally, you imagine the actual reality. I mean, really picture it. Them standing in your hallway with all their bags, ready to move back in. Right now. See, the magic of this whole thing is that it forces a collision. It smashes the idealized person you miss up against the real, complicated person you'd actually get. As long as getting them back feels impossible, it's safe to keep that fantasy alive. But the second it feels possible, you're forced to get real. Our minds get kind of syrup-soaked, We only remember the highlights, that amazing trip to Athens, those cozy nights somewhere exotic. But this thought experiment, it forces you to face the cold light of dawn. You start to remember their annoying little habits, their specific ways of complaining, all their weird compulsions, the real stuff. And it goes deeper than just annoying habits. You have to remember the actual history, the time they wasted, the ways they humiliated you, their clumsiness or maybe their shiftiness. And what about those awful heavy silences? And of course, that final, chilly goodbye. When you picture them moving back in, you're not just getting the good parts. You're getting the whole package. Now, when you really commit to this, when you let the part of your brain that remembers the fantasy talk to the part that knows the truth, you are going to come face to face with a pretty sobering realization. But trust me, it's a realization that will absolutely set you free. And here it is, the big truth. You don't actually want them back. Nope, not the real person, not the whole person as they exist today. This little experiment makes that crystal clear. In fact, getting them back would probably be, well, radioactive to your happiness. So what you really miss is a highly edited version of the past. It's a moment in time, maybe a phase when they were kinder, before you saw all their flaws. But what you'd get is the person they are now, the person who exists after all the bad stuff went down. And when you think about it, that person would probably start to disgust you in like 5 minutes. And that, right there, is the path to freedom. It's all about mental clarity. It's about being willing to think, in excruciating, clear-eyed detail, about what it would actually be like to have them back in your life. It's that detailed, realistic thinking that just dissolves the fantasy. And that's what lets you, finally, truly move on. Which kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about, doesn't it? This isn't just about breakups. Where else in your life might you be clinging to a perfect fantasy just because you're avoiding looking at a much messier reality? What is the one truth that, if you finally faced it, could set you free.